how to deal with brokenness, loss, all the things that seem to be concealments in life. And loss and brokenness is not necessarily only a physical thing, someone that had someone and they're no longer present. But all types of loss. The month of Tammuz, which is the month that we're in presently during the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks is a time between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th, including the 9th of Av. So these 3 weeks is a time of national mourning, mourning the destructions of the first and second temple. But inwardly, it's also a time that we mourn the destructions of our own temples, of our own structures, of our own dreams and hopes sometimes that have not materialized. Tammuz, the way it's described in Tanakh, is connected with a particular ancient pagan worship where people would wail after summer solstice, when the sun starts diminishing and the days become shorter, which has just happened the past week. So it's also the wailing and the crying and the weeping for things lost, for opportunities squandered, for potentials that were not realized, for lost love. And according to the Zohar, Tammuz is a very harsh month. Specifically, the month of Tammuz, when we talk about Tammuz, we're talking about the period between Shivas B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, and Tisha B'Av, these 21 days. In the calendar of the year, in the cycle of the year, there are different periods of time. There are periods of time in the year that is dedicated to experiencing Pesach, which is redemption, or Rosh Hashanah, which is judgment, or Shuas, which is receiving the Torah. On a very deep level, every single day is Rosh Hashanah. Every single day we're being judged. Every single day is an opportunity for transformation. Every single day is an opportunity for growth. Every single day is an opportunity for redemption. So every day is Rosh Hashanah, and every day is Yom Kippur, and every day is Pesach, and every day is Shavuos. And every day is Tisha B'Av. Yet, in the cycle itself, there are times in the year that are dedicated to this specific energy, because it's a cosmic time that's related to this particular life cycle, this particular energy. So it's the embodiment of all the joy of the years in Purim, and all the judgment of the years in Rosh Hashanah, and all the self-reflection is on Yom Kippur, but every day is a little bit of each. And the same thing also with the 3 weeks, that every day has a little bit of that. Every day is a little bit of Tisha B'Av and a little bit of Purim, a little bit of joy and a little bit of sadness. But this is a particular time that we focus on these issues. And of course, the intention of brokenness and separation is never for that purpose. Anytime there's a separation, the separation is only there to bring something out within the person, to create something deeper. And the deeper is always going to be a deeper level of unification. So separation, which is Avdallah, separation, is always for the point of a higher level of Amtaka, a higher level of sweetening. If you look at the creation story on day 2, day 2 is the first day of creation where there is actually separation. Vayavdal Elokim ben Or L'Choshech. Vayavdal Elokim ben Mayim L'Mayim. There's continuous separations on day 2. Therefore, the word Tov, good, does not appear on day 2. Every single day of creation, the word Tov appears, besides day 2. And then on day 3, It's Yom Shehuchel Kitayim, this day that the word Toiv, good, appears twice. Because the intention of the separation is to create the separation, but ultimately, because of that separation, it creates a deeper longing and a deeper connection. And soon we'll see how we're supposed to live with that and how we're supposed to internalize this. And how do we deal with anything that's broken or incomplete yet in our lives. There are 365 days in the year, and the 365 days of the year correspond to the 365 loisasa, which is that which is forbidden in the Torah, the negative commands. And each day corresponds to another particular loisasa, another negative that we're supposed to refrain from. And the Zohar says that Tisha B'Av, which is the climax of the 3 weeks, which begins yesterday, 3 weeks afterwards. The climax of that day, Tisha B'Av, corresponds to the Gid Hanasha. The Gid Hanasha is the part of the animal that we don't eat. It's the sinew, the thigh. And this is particularly connected with the story in the Torah, in the narrative where Jacob struggles with Esav, with the prince of Esav, throughout the night. And in the morning, he's damaged, he's hurt. Jacob is hurt, Yaakov is hurt. And his gid is dislodged. And therefore, the Torah says, "Okay, lo yechlu b'nei Yisrael gid hanasha." Therefore, we do not eat the gid hanasha. So Yaakov struggles. That's the story. The story is that it's at night, and night represents darkness. He struggles in the darkness, and he emerges in the light. Something is missing, something is dislodged, there's a chesed, there's something absent. And the absence is that his gid is misplaced. And because of that, we don't need to gid hanasha. So something about chesed, something about absence, is connected with Tisha B'Av. Simply, we say that there's a temple. There's no longer a temple. That's chesed, that's already missing. So something about these days is connected with the non-fulfillment, the absence of things. The Baal Akeda writes, Yitzhak Arma writes, that Es Agid Hanasha actually corresponds to all the 4 major days of fasts throughout the year that is connected with mourning. So there are 4 fasts, which is Tzom Gedalia, the day after Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah, Asar B'Teves, the 10th of Teves, Shivasa B'Tammuz, and Tisha B'Av. So S is Tisha B'Av, Tish Av. Nasha means a year, so S, Hanasha, means that the Tisha B'Av of the year, and Gid is Gimel, is for the 3rd day of Tishrei, which is Tzom Gedalia, and Yud is for Asar B'Teves, the 10th of Teves, and Gimel Yud Dalet is 17, Gimel is 3, Dalet is 4, and Yud is 17, is for the 17th of Tammuz. So something about the fast days and the days of mourning is connected to this absence, to a time of incompleteness and yearning for completeness. We'll do one more short teaching, then we'll get into how we're supposed to deal with this. According to the Sefer Yetzirah, according to the Arizal, every single month of the year has a sequence of letters, of the 4 letters of the name of Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. There are 4 letters, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. And there's 12 combinations of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. There are 3 letters, so there's 3 separate letters, so there are 12 combinations. And each month corresponds to another formation of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The month of Tammuz is Hey Vav Hey Yud, which is exactly the opposite of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So if Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the sequence of the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav, and the Hey, of the 4 letters of the name of Hashem, corresponds to the month of Nisan, the month of spring, and new hope and new opportunity after a cold winter, where people feel hopeful. And it's a time of redemption, a time of freedom, a time of miracle. So Tammuz is mamish, is literally the opposite of that, where everything is inverted. It's not Yud Kei Vav Kei, but it's the opposite formation of Hey Vav Hey Yud. So much so that the Arizal actually writes, Rabbi Zikloria writes, that in the morning blessings, when we say the Amidah, or the afternoon or the evening for that matter, when we say the Amidah, there's the first 3 blessings corresponds to Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes. The first 3 blessings of the 19 blessings of the Amidah. So the first time you say the name Yud, Hashem, Baruch Atah Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, so you should visualize the letters of Tes Dalet Hey Dalet. So instead of Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, you visualize the letters that precede them. So instead of Yud, you're visualizing a Tes. Instead of Hey, you're visualizing a Dalet. Right? Instead of Vav, a Hey. Instead of Hey, a Dalet. So Dalet Tes, Hey Tes. Now Tes Dalet is 13. Tes is 9. Dalet is 4, is 13. Hey Dalet is 9. Hey is 5. Dalet is 4. So Tes Dalet, Hey Dalet, which is the formation of the letters when you think Yud Kei Vav Kei, but you're thinking the letters before. So the first one is 13, corresponds to the 13 days of Tammuz, because you have 21 days. It starts on the 17th day, so you have 13 days in Tammuz. And then you have 9 days of Av. So the first part of the letter is the 13 days of Tammuz, and the Hey Dalet corresponds to the 9 days of Av. And the same thing also he says with the second Yud Kei Vav Kei that you recite. Instead of visualizing the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, you should visualize the letters as Chav Vav Zayin Vav, which is the letters that follow Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the third time when you visualize the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, you should exchange the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei with Atbash. Atbash is the Aleph is exchanged with the Taf, and the Beis with the Shin, and the Gimel with the Resh, the first letter with the last letter. If you change those letters, you have the letters Mem Tzadik, Pei Tzadik. The point is, what the Arizal is showing is that during this period of time, there's something about the quality of the time, that things are not in order. There's not the direct flow from Yud to Hey to the Vav to the Hey, which means that would be a perfect sequence. That's a time of light. That's a time when inwardly everything is revealed in your life. There's no brokenness. There's no incompleteness. Nothing needs healing. Everything seems perfect in your life. That would be the Yud Kei Vav Kei in sequence. Yud Kei Vav Kei not in sequence or backwards, or the words letters before, the letters after, or an Atbash, means something's out of sequence. But like we said before, there's no purpose in the actual brokenness for the sake of being broken. Brokenness for the sake of being broken in Hebrew is called atzvut. Atzvut means, it's another word for depression. Depressed. Your life is not working out the way you should be. Or you experience a death of a loved one, or a death of a dream, or something is not materializing in your life. So atzvus means that you give up. And it's darkness. And it's separation. But that's never the intention. That's never the intention. Somehow we have to transform and break the shell of concealment and to open it up to something deeper. That somehow the brokenness itself could maybe be a blessing. That somehow the separation itself, the Bein HaMitzarim, the times of constriction, the times of the straits, narrow straits, it's something about being in a difficult place. It can actually open you up to something that's much more profound. In Sefer Yetzirah, it speaks about that the different letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So there are 3 mother letters, which is the Aleph, the Mem, and the Shin. And then there are 7 double letters, which is letters that are pronounced in a harsh and a lighter pronunciation. And then there are 12 simple letters. And every month is connected to a particular letter. The letter that's connected to the month of Tammuz is the letter Ches. And Ches, the structure of the Ches, is basically a horizontal line with 2 vertical lines flowing down, which the Talmud says, the Gemara says, Menachos represents a person that's falling. Someone that fell, like you're, in English maybe, it's such an expression of like the floor fell from under you. So Ches would be a box with no ground. And the ground opens up, and you feel like you have no footing. You're not grounded. So Ches is that sensation. And the first time the letter Ches appears in the Torah as a first word in the Torah is with the word Choshech, darkness. So it makes sense. There's something dark, there's something unsettling, and you feel like you're lost. Your foundation has been taken from under you. And we're talking to everyone over here, but thank God everyone has relatively good lives. But there are people, God forbid, that have real hardships in their life. And at a young age, a person can pass away, or some really painful experiences. And when you're attached to that person, and the person one day is no longer, so you feel like your ground, basically your foundation, especially if it's a parent. And maybe even if you're older, it works the same way. It depends on your relationship that you have with your parents. And then all of a sudden you feel like your foundation is lost. Your ground opens up, and you're a Ches. This is no ground. It's Choshech, it feels dark. And yet, Sefer Yetzirah also writes that the sense that every month is connected with a particular sense, and the sense connected with Tammuz is the sense of sight. And the sense of sight, where do we see the first time that the Torah mentions seeing, is Vayar Elokim Ki Tov. Hashem saw it was good. So on one hand we say that it's connected with Choshech, which is darkness, separation, losing your ground. On the other hand, we're saying that Vayar Elokim Ki Tov, that somehow there's a type of light, a type of goodness that's connected. And what was the thing that says that the Creator saw? Vayar Elokim Ki Tov. Hashem saw, God saw that the light was good. So Ches is connected with darkness, but it's also connected with the sense of the month of Tammuz, which is connected to seeing, and seeing is connected with light. So what are we talking? We're talking about a type of light that somehow appears from the darkness. Yisna or mina choshech. The verse says that there's a value to light over darkness. And the sages say Yisna or metocha choshech, that there's a value to light from the darkness. That is a type of light that comes through the darkness. A type of seeing that you see through the darkness. Metoch nefila kima, metoch afela oira. There's a metoch afela oira. There's Chazal say that there's a type of light, metoch afela, from the darkness. Not only that you were in darkness and now you see light, but somehow the darkness itself, metoch afela, metoch choshech, from the darkness, from the hiddenness, there's light. Metoch choshech. What does it mean? What does it mean to have light from the darkness? So we'll first start with a story, not really a story, but something that's brought down very perplexingly. Something that happened at the destruction of the temple, of the first temple. So we all know that in the temple there were different rooms. There was the outer court, the Kodesh, which is the holy, and then there's the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which is the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies means the most perfect place in the universe. We all have that part within ourselves, the Holy of Holies, something that's very, very perfect, very whole. And in the Holy of Holies, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there was the Kruvim, which is the cherubs, and there were two little winged figures, and they were set in position that were facing one another at certain times. And it says that Bisman, when the people of Israel, because these two little winged angels represents man and God, and the reflection of each other. So when man is in embrace of the Creator is in embrace of man, and they're in an embrace. When Israel is not correct, so they separate from each other. So instead of being winged together in an embrace, they turn around. These are like magical figures, magical mythical figures, that inanimate, movable objects. And they embrace accordingly. I think really it has to do with perception in many ways, because you perceive things differently when you're in a right state. When you're in a right state, you see embrace. When you're in a wrong state, you see strife. But this is the way it is. So somehow, when the temple was being destroyed, it says that the Talmud says in another place that these winged angels were in an embrace, which is strange because this is the time that the destruction of the temple. We can assume that destruction of the temple means that there's some type of divine retribution. Things are being destroyed, and yet the angels are being embraced. And that's the beginning of exile. That's the beginning of the collective Jewish exile, because up until the point the people of Israel leave Egypt, they receive the Torah, they go into Israel, and they're in their homeland. And after the destruction of the first temple, that's the first time the people of Israel dispersed into exile. So this is the beginning of exile. Exile means alienation. Exile means separation. National, a deeper desire and a deeper yearning, which essentially then means a deeper connection when the two things are actually together. When two people are in a relationship, and certainly this happens over a longer period of time, and it could be an intimate relationship or even a relationship that you have with your friend, a relationship certainly that you have with a child, and you're constantly together, always together, 24 hours a day. Over a longer period of time, the passion and the love, not the love, but the passion for each other could become weakened. Because you see the person 24 hours, whenever you turn, the person's there. Passion is a very delicate thing. There needs to be some level of mystery, some level of separation, in order to create a yearning which creates passion. So sometimes when people separate from each other, they actually realize how much they love each other. Sometimes when things are absent, you realize how much you needed it. And this is the depth of what happened as the destruction of the temple was occurring. The destruction of the temple is occurring means that there's exile. But exile actually shows that there's a deeper connection, because deeper connections is not only when things are together on a physical plane. If you merited, and your parents had a long life, and you were with them for a long time during your life, and you see them constantly, and then all of a sudden one day they pass away, let's say 95, they had a long life, or God forbid earlier. Now all of a sudden you realize that you actually want them more than you thought you needed them or wanted them when they were alive. And what the analogy of the Kruvim is saying, that in itself is a good thing. That in itself is like the light, the light from the darkness. The light from the darkness is that sometimes, by not having something or not seeing something, it brings out a deeper connection that you have with that person, and a deeper love that you have for that person becomes revealed. And anyways, things are not physical. Of course you want to see the person, but your love for a parent, or for, God forbid, a sibling or someone else, it's not physical. It's not a physical thing. Love is not a physical thing. You don't love them because how they look. You love them for who they are. And who they are is always there. That doesn't pass on. That's their soul. That's their spirituality. That's their energy. That's something that survives. Something that's always present. So the fact that you miss someone that was in your life, and the fact that the person was there and is no longer there, you can focus on the negative, which is that you can't see the person. Or you can understand that in itself, that you can't see, brings out the deeper yearning, which therefore means that you have a deeper connection with them. And the connection is everlasting. So somehow, the brokenness and the separation is only there to bring about a deeper yearning. And this is on a cosmic level as well. The whole creation follows this pattern. The Creator is everything and was everything and will be everything. And then there's a tzimtzum, which is a contraction, concealment. And God, the Creator, goes into hiding. But what's the intention of the hiding? What happens after the tzimtzum? What's created from the tzimtzum? The tzimtzum is a contraction of the infinite light within itself. What's created from the tzimtzum? A cholol, empty space, which means absence. But then creation occurs. And what creation? Creation occurs through the kav. The kav is the chaz over here. After there's a constriction of the light, the concealment of the light, then there's a re-revelation of that light in the form of a kav, which is a line. That's the line that fills the circle and fills up the entire space. The word kav is also connected with the word kave, which means to desire, to yearn. So the purpose of the tzimtzum, of the constriction, the purpose of the concealment, of the divine concealment, is only to create the desire for the divine. That there should be separation for the purpose of desire, which creates again unity. Because if there's only Hashem, then there's only one. If there's only separation, then there's two. But if we can recognize that the purpose of the tzimtzum is to create the desire for God, and ultimately that's the only desire that we have in this world. Everything that we desire is merely reflections of this ultimate desire that we yearn for unity. And we've spoken about this many times. You want this thing and the other thing and then that, this money or power or fame or beauty, whatever you want in your life, it's really a desire to reconnect with something that's whole. Because we feel an innate sense of emptiness, of lack, of chisaron, of something that's missing. The reason why we feel continuously that this emptiness and the sense of this missing is because that's the way we're created. We're created in a place that is missing. Post-tzimtzum, we are missing. And since we're missing, we always feel missing. There's always something amiss. There's always something not complete. This is one dimension of the human being, that we're created in the post-tzimtzum reality, in the post-constricted reality, in post-concealment reality, and therefore we constantly yearn. Every person's yearning for something, even yearning to live, because you feel like you haven't yet lived. You haven't yet achieved what you should achieve. What are you supposed to achieve? You don't even know. But there's something that tells you you have to do something. You have to be somewhere. It's innate. Why? Because we're created in the place of the tzimtzum, of constriction, of concealment, which creates the kav, which is the desire to yearn. But the purpose of the kav is to create the yearning, which means back to the unity. Now, nafshistik, on a level of soul, we actually have two dimensions. And we'll further unpack this idea a little further. There's one level of soul, which is your nefesh, ruach, and neshama, your naran, your collectively it's called naran. That's part of your tnuah, movement. Movement means you're moving towards something. If you're moving towards something, it means it's still not complete. And then there's the part of yourself, the deepest part of yourself, which is called yichida, which is one. The part of yourself that's called one doesn't yearn anything. Because if you yearn something, it means that you don't have it yet. There's something outside of yourself. The part of yichida is perfect at all times. So we have these two dimensions within ourselves. That on one hand, we're continuously striving for more, for something different, a new place, a new friend, a new reality, something else. On the other hand, we have this perfection already innate. And they're two separate realities. We can't exchange one for the next. We can't fill our emptiness ever, because that's who we are. We're post-symptom, but we also come from pre-symptom. And our pre-symptom reality is always complete. But the place that we're complete, we don't have any desires. There's nothing that's lacking. And we'll see that we have to actually learn to navigate these two realities. We're going to do now something, we're going to try to speak about this from four basic perspectives. One will be the perspective from the physical, which is also called the Olam, the physical universe. One will be from Bria and Yitzir, which is an emotional, spiritual universe. Really an emotional, mental universe. One will be from the perspective of Atzilus, which is a spiritual universe. And one will be from perspective of Adam Kadmon, which is primordial man, which is a perspective that includes all three lower perspectives. You're following? So you want to understand this to really get to the depth of really what it means to be alive. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be really in touch with who you are? And how do you deal with everything in life? Do you get too attached, less attached, too emotional, less emotional? Does everything really matter? Doesn't it really matter? Take, for example, the most extreme example is death. You experience death in your life, a death of a loved one, and you're very attached to this person. Is it a chasar? Is there something wrong that you were so attached that because you were so attached you feel so in pain? So maybe the solution is to don't be so attached. Is that what we should be doing? Maybe the solution for because we feel so attached, therefore we get so much pain. The more we love, the more pain we have. So love less and have pain less. Some people have that solution. Could be possible. Or some people say just focus on the love, and if you're in pain, you're in pain. And that's it. There's nothing to do. So love more and have more pain. But to love is human. And to love man really is to love God. V'ahavta Hashem alakecha, you should love God, and v'ahavta l'recha kamocha ani Hashem, and you should love your fellow man, has the same numeric value. So what does it mean to love God? To love God means to love man, who's created in God's image. You love what the lover loves. So God loves man, you love God. It's all the same. You can't love God without loving man. And you can't really love man without loving God. Because you need Ani Hashem. Ani Hashem. If you don't have the Ani Hashem, then you love what the person does for you and how the person looks and what the person's, makes you feel, but you don't really love them unconditionally. But all of a sudden they don't look the way you like the way they look, and all of a sudden they don't do the things that they want to do, you still love them. So essentially you really don't love them, you love yourself. And you like people that make you feel good about yourself. To love someone else means to actually love the other. don't know if this is mamish connected, but the Kotzker Rebbe once saw someone eating fish. But with great relish, he was eating fish. So he asked him, what are you doing? He says, I love fish. He said, no, you don't love fish. If you love fish, you're going to be eating them. You love yourself. You love how it tastes when you eat fish. I love this person so much. Really? Do you really love that other person? Or you love yourself? I'm totally in love with this other person. Because the person makes me feel good about myself and says how beautiful and smart and intelligent I am. So to really love another human being, really, you have to have Ani Hashem, you have to understand that we're part of the same, we're part of one. That by loving you, I'm actually loving myself, and loving myself and loving you, it's all part of one. There's no separation. In the language of the Jerusalem Talmud, it's like your hand and your leg and your foot, it's all part of one body. That's Ani Hashem. It's a sense of transcendence. The same thing also with loving God. You can't love God, it's an abstraction. To love God means to love man. So let's start from the world of Asiya. In the world of Asiya, which is the world of the physical, in the world of the physical, and we'll talk in the extreme, but you can always understand it in all different types of situations. The extreme would be death, where there's something and there's no longer something, but death can mean literally the death of someone that you loved, or it can mean that, like we spoke before, it can be the death of an idea, the death of a dream, the death of ambition, the death of a desire, something that you wanted and that never materialized, the ending of something. So in the world of Asiya, we'll give an analogy of a person as a parent. That's the most natural thing. And your parent is older than you, so obviously at some point in time, if we go according to the way it's naturally created, your parents pass away before you. So let's say you lived a long life. Let's say you lived till you're 70, your parents are 95, and they pass away. You're a human being, you love them for 60 years. You're completely attached to them. You cared for them. You really love them unconditionally. They're your parents. And now they're no longer here. And it's very painful. And losing a parent is painful no matter if you're 10 or 110. You miss them. They're no longer here. So you love them immensely. You were connected to them. And now they're no longer here. So the experience in the world of Asiya, in the physical world, is that they were here, and now they're no longer here. And that's painful. That hurts. So how do we deal with such brokenness and such concealment in the world of Asiya? And we're giving an analogy of death, and a particular analogy, but of course it extends to every single situation of life. How do we deal with it? So first of all, while the person is alive, we love them fully, unconditionally, and we open our heart completely towards this person. But now, death comes and it's a tremendous amount of pain. The most we can do in the level of Asiya, and this is already a madreg, this is already a level, is to say, like we talked before about the kruvim, about the two cherubs that were embraced, that we understand that a broken heart, because we feel broken and we feel in pain, there is value and there's light in that as well. Your heart is broken open. You know, the Hasidic sages say that there is nothing more complete than a broken heart. If you ever had a broken heart, you know what this means. It means that all of a sudden, when you have a broken heart, your heart is open. There's something that is a concealment, actually, that's broken open when your heart is broken. Now, usually the reaction to that is to have self-pity, go inwards, and just think about yourself. and say what a rachmanis it is, what a terrible pity I am that, I'm 65 and I lost my parents, and walk around moping. That's unhealthy. That's unhealthy. I can't say I can't tell someone, or no one can tell anyone, you shouldn't feel that, because that's the way you feel. But the way the Torah describes it is that there are periods. If you experience something that's very painful, so there's a period. Shlosh lebechi, 3 days to cry. Then the 7 days of Shiva. There's a process. And the process is, you need to cry, you need to have a little bit self-pity. It's okay. You're human, you were attached to this person. And if you don't, in the language of the Rambam, of Maimonides, you're an achsar. You're a cold person, something's wrong with you, you're cruel. If you don't cry when someone dies, because you're a physical person, and you're living in a physical universe, and the person is someone that you saw your entire life, if you don't feel in pain, then you're not a human being. And you're not because you're an angel, because you're cruel. Because you have to love. You have to be in this world. And you have to feel the feelings of what human beings feel. And that's very holy and very noble. Everything should be an exaggeration. When you love, you should love fully. So therefore, when you're in pain, you feel the pain very terribly, and you feel in pain. And there's a process, which you don't have to get through in detail, but there's a process of 3 days and 7 days and 30 days. And if you look at the period between Shiva B'Tammuz, the 17th Tammuz, and Tisha B'Av, the 9th Tammuz, all these days, parallel processes of actually mourning someone that passed away. So sitting on the floor or not taking showers and all these things, this is very intense levels of Shiva, which you do on the 9th day of Av. And then there's the week of the Tisha B'Av, where we don't eat meat, also stronger, and then there's no relationship. These are all related to cycles of as if someone just passed away. Like we started off the conversation, even though no one just passed away, and hopefully your life is beautiful and light and perfect, and everyone should be blessed this way. But the point is that during this period of time is the embodiment of all the pain that you experienced throughout the year. So the things that you didn't think about throughout the year, it's a good time to think about these things now. And to feel those feelings, not to ignore them, because you're a human being and you have to feel those feelings. And if it's painful, it's fine. And the brokenness, it's fine. To just acknowledge it and accept it and realize the gift of that brokenness. It opens your heart, it makes you, it enlarges you. And on a deep level, it also creates the yearning, and therefore you have the connection again. Because the yearning and the desire and the longing is actually the yichud, is actually the connection on the level of asiyah. That in itself is the connection. So this is the way it functions on the world of asiyah on a physical level. So if you look at the right column, in the place, this is the place of the dream. The reason I call it a dream because it's the drama of life, the connections. You feel good, you feel bad. This person makes you feel good. Whatever, all the drama of life. And it's the dream is real. It's real. The dream that you're dreaming is real. It's as real as your dream state and your waking state. This is the world of asiyah. Everything that you see, what appears to you to be real, is real, and that's the way you're experiencing it. And in this real world of what you're seeing and observing the physical, there is real drama, and there's real pain, and there's real love, and there's real feelings, there's real attachments, there's real non-attachment. And this is all part of the drama of life and the cycles. And to be a healthy human being is to actually feel all those feelings. So not to say, I'm so joyous, I'm just a joyous person, I never have any pain, I never feel any sadness. Because then you're like on Purim every day, or Simchas Torah. But you never experience Tisha B'Av. You have to have a little Tisha B'Av in your life. And some people walk around every day as Tisha B'Av. Every day they're walking around crying and mourning and moping. So they don't have any joy, no Purim. You need a balance. You need to strike a balance. But you have to feel, and the cycle of time and the calendar allows us to go through these different stages to feel these different feelings at these different points. That's the level of asiyah. It's all real. It's all real and it's very painful, and I feel strongly, and I feel joy, and I feel sadness, I feel pain, and I feel brokenness, and I feel yearning, I feel connection, and I feel yichud. It's all true. It's still not logical. It still doesn't make any sense. In this world of Asiya, from your perspective, the person's here, the person's no longer here. I don't understand why. Why can this person live another 2 years? Maybe see my grandchild's wedding. There's always a reason why a person should live, or at least from your perspective. Even the person's 95. Okay, so I'm marrying off my great-grandchild. I want my father to see my great-grandchild's marriage. Right? There's always a reason for a person to live more from our perspective. So, but on the level of Asiya, you don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. And you're feeling the non-sense, and you're feeling, and that's why you feel pain. We've spoken about this many times also. The more we understand purpose and reason, the less pain we experience. The less weight we experience, the less time we experience, the less space we experience, right? For having a good time, it takes less time. If you're sitting with someone that you're enjoying, it's less time. Someone that you're not enjoying, it's less time. It's more time, right? So this whole time, space is elastic. It contracts and expands according to the intention and the purpose that you're experiencing. The less light, the more darkness. So you experience more darkness and more darkness. This is the world of Asiya. Then there's a higher perspective. We're calling this higher, and so we'll see that there's no higher and lower here, really. There's a higher perspective, which is from the world of Yetzirah and Bria. Yetzirah is an emotional universe, and Bria is an intellectual universe. In this reality, we realize that there is purpose, that it's not meaningless, that nothing just happens randomly. Okay, I love this person, the person is no longer here. There's a divine purpose. Maybe it has to do with my past life. Maybe it has to do with my future life. Maybe it has to do with my life now. Are you for certain that certain things in your life that you say are negative are actually negative? Do you see the whole picture? You don't know. Sometimes things that we look back and we say, when something happened to me, I was 20 years old, and this certain particular thing happened to me, and I thought that was the biggest tragedy in my life. But in retrospect, when I'm 9 years old, I look back and it's probably the biggest blessing that happened to my life. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we're gifted to see the purpose in our struggles and the purpose in our pain and the experience that we have to go through. Sometimes we get the gift to see what the purpose was during our life. Sometimes we don't see it during our life, maybe in the next life, in Olam Haba, or in a previous life. The sages in the Talmud talk about this phrase in two ways. Everything Hashem does is for the best. And even this is for the good. That somehow, you know the famous story of Rabbi Akiva, that he came into a city. I mean, obviously this is on a lighter note. He came into a city, and he knocked on the door for somewhere to stay, but the people were cruel and didn't let him stay in their house. No one invited him to his house. He didn't know what to do, so he took his rooster and his donkey and went into the forest. Then a whole long story, basically the rooster and the donkey were killed, and his light went out, and at some point in the middle of the night he says, my rooster died, which was going to wake me up in the morning. My donkey died, which is where I'm going to travel. I have no light, so I can't even study, and I'm stuck in the middle of the darkness, and it's cold, I have nothing to eat. This is the most miserable night of my life. And the next morning, when he came back to town, he realized that the town was ransacked by thieves and people were massacred. And he said, if my rooster would have been alive, it would have made noise. If my light would have been on, they would have seen me. And these are the things that saved my life. So sometimes we have a gift to see that, and sometimes we can train ourselves to see certain patterns and certain things in our life, to see purposes. So even though it seems to be dark and it seems to be negative, like we say, there is a purpose, there's a higher purpose. And the fact that we acknowledge that there is a purpose, maybe in my past life, maybe my future life, maybe even in this life itself, that in itself diminishes a little bit the pain that we're experiencing. Because the more purpose, the more recognizable purpose you have, the less you're experiencing the pain. If someone told you that I'm going to give you an injection and it's going to be painful, but because of that your armor is going to be bionic arm or something, and you're going to be able to, do powerful things with your arm, you'll say, okay, fine, I'll suffer for the pain for a few moments to have a stronger arm. If someone can say, if you had the voice of God speaking to you and says, okay, you're struggling now, but I want to tell you because of this is what's going to happen to you. And you're seeing what will and what's the divine purpose, what's the ultimate purpose, somehow that diminishes a little bit the struggle and the pain that you experience. And everything happens for a purpose. So from the level of Bria and Yetzirah, you're recognizing and you're seeing, either you actually see the purpose, or at least you affirm that there is a purpose. And that somehow diminishes a little bit the pain. There's a story that's recorded with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich, after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, the Maggid of DovBer realized that there was a terrible decree. And he prayed for this decree to be annulled. But he was really upset because his teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, he knew that every time the Baal Shem Tov saw something, that something's about to happen, he would gather his students and he would go into the forest and they would light a fire and they would pray and they would dance and they would cry until the Baal Shem Tov felt like the decree was annulled. The Baal Shem Tov was taking care of things. And now his master died, the Baal Shem Tov died, and he felt like his Rebbe disappeared. Here, this woman is struggling in childbirth, and this person has no livelihood, and this person just died. And there's so much sorrow in this world, so much hardship in the world. And here the student, the Maggid of Mezrich, sees this terrible decree that's going to happen, and he has no inclination that his master, his teacher, his Rebbe, cares or is aware of any of this. And he has a dream. He has a mystical vision. And the Baal Shem Tov appears in his dream, and he tells him, Rebbe, I'm really upset at you. I don't understand. Don't you know we're struggling over here in this world? It's such a horrifying things are going on in this world. And you just disappeared. You went into Gan Eden and you're all happy. You don't care about us anymore. And the Baal Shem Tov says, I don't understand you. From my perspective, and that's Gan Eden is in the world of Bria, from my perspective, everything makes perfect sense. It's exactly the way it should be. So the Maggid says, okay. So you're telling me it's exactly the way it should be? Everything, all the decrees, everything has to be this way? The Baal Shem Tov says, yeah, this is the ultimate good. This is the way it should be. So the Maggid says, so should I stop praying? So the Baal Shem Tov said, no, you should continue praying because from your perspective, it's not. In other words, something is painful. Something hurts. You have an Atzilus or Bria Yetzirah perspective. It's meant to be. Your foot hurts. Forget about something really dramatic. You have a foot, your toe hurts. It's a divine plan. It's meant to be. My toe is supposed to hurt because it's supposed to bring a greater good to me. I'm not going to go to the doctor. But it hurts. If it hurts, take care of it. Why? Because you're in the world of Asiyah. We have to do everything in our potential to alleviate as much pain we have in this world. Not only from ourselves, but from others, from the whole world. The more healing, the more goodness, the less pain in the world, the more we're creating a tikkun for this world, the more we're rectifying this world. That's the world of Asiyah. We function in the world of Asiyah. We function in the physical world. Pain is real. We have to eliminate pain. Simultaneously, from the perspective of Bria and Yetzirah, we say everything has a purpose. So now there's a delicate balance between, from the perspective of the Baal Shem Tov and the perspective of the Maggid, from the perspective that pain is real, and I'm suffering, and I'm in pain, and it hurts, and acknowledging that it hurts, and if it's painful, you could cry, and you should cry, because you're human, and you are human, and you're supposed to be human, and to be human means to be divine, because God created you to be human, and therefore you're expressing your full humanness. And min ha-murgash ba'al ha-muskal, you have to go from the murgash, from the tangible, you can reach higher elevations, but you have to go through the tangible. You have to feel love, you have to feel pain, you have to really feel the experiences, what you're having, and acknowledge that they're real. And yet simultaneously also know, this is the second perspective, that everything has a purpose. One shouldn't weigh out the other. It shouldn't be more this or more that. We should somehow have a balance. That's the second perspective. The third perspective is on the second page. The third perspective is that there is no drama. There is no world. Everything is just an illusion. It's all a dream. Everything is ayin. And what are you getting caught up in this whole drama? This is another perspective. The creation occurs from yesh, from ayin to yesh, from nothingness, emptiness, into somethingness. The world of bria, yitzira, and asir, which is creation, formation, actualization, which corresponds to the mental, emotional, and physical, which is the universes that we just spoke, and the internal universes that we just spoke about, right? The physical universe where things are very real. The mental, emotional universe where you're understanding that there is a purpose. But there's still the drama. You're just saying there's a purpose in the drama. From the perspective of ayin, from the perspective of divine nothingness, there is nothing. It's a whole illusion. Me and you are having a conversation. It's not true. It's all the divine. What are you getting caught up on the shell? You're real. Time is real. Space is real. It's all just one big illusionary game. Everything is ayin. And nothing's real. The only thing that's real is Hashem. Eino milvad. There's nothing else besides God. And this whole drama that we have, oh, I'm attached to this person and the person's no longer here, and I'm attached and I lost my money because I had a dream and had a bit. What are you talking about? Everything's just an illusion. It's all ayin, it's all nothing. It's empty, it's void. There's only God. The moment you say, there is not God, I feel my pain, I feel my struggle, I feel my strife, I feel my ambitions and my desires, you're separating yourself from the real truth, which is ayin, which is nothingness, and nothing exists. Did you ever fly up in a plane slowly? I mean, I'm sure you did. Did you ever look out the window when the plane starts going up? And first you see everything's very real and the guy's running around and making sure I'm throwing the flag, and you think, God forbid, the plane hits the guy, and this is a very scary moment and the plane's about to go up, and slowly it goes higher and higher, and the person becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until the person actually disappears and you can't see the person anymore. Did you ever have that as an eternal experience? The person's real, the person's real, the person's real. You have to go further and further mentally, not physically. And the further you go, the more inwards you get, the deeper you become, the more your life seems to be non-existent. This person insulted me, this person doesn't like me, this person said hello to me, this person didn't say hello to me. Slowly you move back and back and back internally, and all of a sudden these things become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, so it disappears. This is called ispashta tagashpias, the divestment from all physicality. We experience this physically, but deeply on an emotional level and a spiritual level, is that the more inwards and deeper in ayin we become, the more we realize that it's all nothing. What's life? Life is just chalom yov. It's like a dream that you just wake up and all of a sudden disappears, the dream. Right? We say this a lot in the liturgy of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That life is like a moment. You wake up and then the next moment you're no longer here. What is 80 years? It's a small dream. We get so attached to the narrative and so attached to the drama that this person's this and this person's that and that. Really? It's ayin. So not that you're saying that there's a purpose. Not that there's no purpose. Not that you're saying there's a purpose. That's not, I don't care about purpose. I'm saying the whole thing is a dream. The whole entire structure is one big illusion. Deeply an illusion. And somehow we actually experience this illusion on some level. the triviality of it and the meaninglessness of it, and it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller until it's reduced into an ayin. This seems to be a spiritual perspective. So we have two almost diametrically opposite experiences here. On one hand, we say, "V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha," you shall love God. "V'ahavta Re'acha Kamecha" is one. Min hamurgash el hamuskal. You have to feel the murgash. You have to feel the tangible. You have to experience life. You have to make a blessing over your food. You have to enjoy amidush ne'oining. Everything is filled with divine pleasure. The world is filled with divine glory. The world itself is the male, the fullness of creation is the divine. Within the fullness of creation, every single experience, the joy and the pain and the happiness and the sorrow and the desire and the emptiness and the lack and the yearning, it's all part of the beautiful drama of life. And I want to participate and get fully involved in it. That's one perspective, which is Asiya. Then there's the other perspective, which is Atzilus, which is, what are you talking about? There's nothing. It's completely empty and nothing and void and has no substance. And the only thing there is, Ein Milvad, there's only God, there's nothing else. Everything else is an illusion. Now comes the fourth perspective. The fourth perspective is called Adam Kadmon. The Adam Kadmon perspective is like this. Adam Kadmon literally means primordial man. But structurally, Adam Kadmon is like the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension, so you have the four dimensions which represent opposites, right? It's an even number. And then the fifth dimension, like the third dimension, always represents a unity, something that infuses these two opposites together. That's why we talk about 5 levels of the soul. Because the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, which we talked about, that's the fullness of our life. The Chaya is the emptiness of our life. The Yechida is what unifies the fullness and the emptiness together. Bri Yitzir Asiya is the fullness of life and the drama, and life is real and creation is real. Bereshis Bar Elokim, in the beginning God created. That's a verse in the Torah, it's real. The Torah is real, the Torah says creation occurs. That's the world of Bria, of creation. Then there's the Torah of Atzilus. The world, the first letter in the Torah that we have is Beis. Beis is the second letter. Second letter means duality. That's the world of duality, of separation, of drama and life. There's pain, there's suffering, there's joy, there's pleasure. This is life. Then there's the Torah of Atzilus. There's the Torah of the Aleph. What's the Torah of the Aleph? The Torah of Aleph is the Torah of one. Torah of one is the Torah of Ar, light. There's no creation, everything's light. Everything's divine light. There's no me, there's no you, everything's divine light. It's just all an illusion. That's the Torah of Atzilus. Atzilus is also with an Aleph, right? Torah of Atzilus. Torah of Bria, Torah of Beis. Torah of Atzilus is Torah of light. Torah of one. What's Adam Kadmon? Adam Kadmon is the entire structure. Adam Kadmon means the fullness of the divine persona. Primordial man, or mankind. The fullness of the divine persona means something that encompasses all opposites. Life is real and life is not real. Pain is real and pain is not real. Yesh is real and Ayin is real. They're both real. Nothing's more real than the next. These are two simultaneous perspectives that don't cancel each other out, but complement each other. Life is a drama, and we have to be attached to the drama of life, and attached to all the pain and all the suffering, all the joy, for that matter, because they're the flip side of each other. We have to love fully, and therefore we have pain fully. We have to be happy fully, and therefore we're sad fully. And this is all part of the cyclical nature of the calendar. It goes through all these points. There's Purim once a year, and there's Tisha B'Av once a year. And Purim, you have to really feel Purim. And on Tisha B'Av, you really have to feel Tisha B'Av. Because you're a human being, and you have to feel that. And that's part of being a human being. On the other hand, there's something that's outside the calendar, which is Ayin. There's no calendar, there's no time, there's no rhythm, there's no movement. There's no tnuah, there's no movement, there's no nefesh, ruach, and neshama, which we said is movement. It's chaya, it's life. It always is, it's divine light, it's or, it's always perfect, it's exactly the way it is. You don't even have to say purpose, because it's nothing. And then there's a perspective that actually joins these two opposites in one. This is the depth of what we're trying to get to. That's not an either or. It's not you have to choose, do I live a very physical life or do I live a very spiritual life? Because by that definition, it's duality, it's separation. Either I attach myself very fully to someone because I want to live in the physical world, or I say I'm completely not attached to anything. Both those perspectives are incorrect. You have to attach yourself to everything in life because that's where you are. You're a human being. And if you have parents, you have to love them fully. You have children, you have to love them fully. And you know well that by loving someone fully, that's older than you, the person is going to pass on at some time before you. And therefore you're going to experience a lot of pain. But that's okay. That's the way life is. On the other hand, we can get too caught up in that perspective that we don't realize that there's another perspective. The other perspective is the Bria Yitzir, which everything has purpose, and the other perspective that does nothing actually exist. So the world actually does and doesn't exist simultaneously. And pain actually exists and doesn't exist simultaneously. And if you say, okay, how could I really wrap my mind around this? It's too complicated. It's not. This is who you are. You're actually this being. You're a being that has nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Nefesh is connected to the physical, ruach is connected to the emotional, neshama is connected to the mental, chai is connected to the spiritual, and you have all these multiple perspectives. You have the physical perspective, things are real. The emotional perspective is emotional understanding. And a mental perspective, there's an intellectual understanding, an intellectual purpose. And a spiritual perspective, it's atzilus. It's all unified, it's all one, there's nothing exists. And then you have a chida, which actually includes all these perspectives. So to be fully a human being is not to be either or. Either a very spiritual person or a very physical person. Either someone that's very attached or someone that's completely non-attached. Either someone that always sees the purpose or someone that doesn't see any of the purpose. But to combine them. And on each madrega, on each level that we're at, we have to somehow find the yichud in that level itself. Try to find the or mitoicha afela, the light from the darkness. Or mitoicha choshen, the light from the darkness. The light from the darkness means to find the connection in the experience that you're having. Because everything has value. Even if it's pain, and even if it's hurt, that in itself, if you go deep into it, there is some yichud there. There is some unification there. Either it's longing, yearning, maybe it creates stronger memory of the person that passed away. Maybe you have now a deeper connection with the person that passed away because the person is no longer there. Maybe it's stimulating for yourself, maybe it stimulates you to do something, but there could be something within the level of Asiya itself that makes the kruvim, that makes the cherubs, instead of separating from each other and looking apart and saying, I'm going this direction, you're going in this direction, life is purposeless and meaningless, and I'm just stuck in the darkness, to somehow find an embrace. And when we find an embrace, that's the most powerful embrace. The most powerful embrace is actually an embrace that comes from separation. And that's why the Maharal writes, and others, it's brought down in the Medrash, that Mashiach is born, redemption. The Redeemer is born on Tisha B'Av. In the depth of darkness, that's when is the perfect opportunity for light. Because sometimes the deeper the friction, the deeper the harshness, the deeper the darkness, the more the spark can be revealed. And to acknowledge these feelings, not to ignore them, to say, oh, I'm a spiritual person, no, I'm not, who has pain? Or to be so in pain that you just feel completely overwhelmed by the pain that you can't move. And to recognize that there's cycles, and there's times for everything. And if you feel it, you feel it. And slowly to try to strike a balance between all these emotions to create some type of wholeness and completion. And that's why the time of the 3 weeks, which we said is a very harsh time in the Zohar, is also the biggest opportunity for light. We're going to take a few questions. We're going to take questions from here. If anyone has questions from here, you can ask. Don't feel shy. Yeah. You have a question? Go ahead.
If we say these 3 weeks are sad days,
Yeah.
but for the other hand, we say facing up only the feelings or 2 feelings, love and fear. So the sad, and we say from the other side, in Torah says that the worst thing you can do to your physical body is anger. So sadness is connected to anger. So why is the reason that we should be sad? Because therefore, if we are only fear and love, and this is definitely sadness, is not connected to love, so it can be only anger, and it will hurt our heart, which is also the worst thing that we can do according to Torah. From other side, as you mentioned before, during the creation, Hashem never said bad day. He just said, he didn't mention the word good. So the bad day, Hashem didn't create anything bad. It's just of our perspective, we see that, but there is no bad. So why we should say these 3 days are bad, 3 weeks are bad or sad, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're asking the question about why we call them sad days, if sad is connected to separation and connected to givura, which means the element of constriction. And what you're suggesting is usually feeling sad brings to anger. But it's not necessarily the course. What you're saying is partially correct. The world is created from a balance of chesed and gevurah. Chesed is the expansion and the giving, the loving. Creation is a chesed. But gevurah, every moment contains a chesed and a gevurah moment. We say, for example, I'll explain what this means. We say, that creation is continuous. That every moment is a new creation. If every moment is a new creation, that means every other moment is a new destruction. So if if Hashem is creating at every moment, that means that every other moment Hashem is destroying. What does that mean? We actually read about this in the previous parasha, the previous Torah portion. We talked about Balak cursing and Bilam cursing. And the Talmud, the Gemara says in Brachot, that Bilam cursing because he knew the one moment of the day that Hashem becomes angry. So what does he say? He would say, Kloim, they should disappear. One moment of the day. What does it mean that one moment of the day God becomes angry? This means that doesn't mean at every single day at 5:48 and 38 seconds there's a divine wrath moment. It means that every single moment actually has a moment of gevurah, of restriction. Every single moment has a power to create. That's the chesed element, that's creation. And every single moment has a gevurah moment. It's like the inhale and exhale. Exhale is the beginning of creation, because creation occurs through speech, so the beginning of speech is the exhale. And then every moment is the inhale. Every other moment is the inhale, which everything is returned back into its source. Because of these two movements, we can either create or destroy. Gevurah is not negative. It's not a negative emotion. Gevurah could lead to a negative emotion, like chesed could lead to a negative emotion. Restriction and sadness and feeling pain does not necessarily mean that therefore you're going to become angry, because just like chesed, which means feeling good, doesn't always mean you're going to do good things. In the Torah, we have the idea of chesed is, God forbid, for the worst situation of relationship between two people. The Torah says ki chasedu, it's a chesed. It's an extreme act of violence, and the Torah calls it a chesed. Because a person that's giving could also give when the recipient doesn't want to receive. That could be also an extreme level of chesed. Ultimately, gevurah, which is restriction, which is sadness, if you go to the root of it, which you say is correct, is fear. But lower fear is fear of your ego. Higher fear is awe. And the highest level of awe becomes pleasure. So the deeper you go into yira, the deeper you go into the second emotion, if you really go deeply, you don't get to a place of anger. On the contrary, the deeper the person feels, let's understand this for a second. If a person feels afraid of fear, it's because they feel small. Feeling small could be negative, and therefore you can lash out in anger. But you can go deeper into the thing. Why do I feel small? Because everything is so big. So the smallness of myself actually brings out the magnitude of everything else. What's the ultimate greatness of creation? The Creator. So all of a sudden, from my being small, all of a sudden I have awe of the creation and the Creator. And if I have this complete overwhelming sense of awe, awe brings me to pleasure. It's wow and because the wow moment brings you to a state of pleasure. So this is the same thing we're talking about the sadness. Sadness is there's no intention of the sadness in the sadness itself. To be sad is self-pity. But if you're feeling sad, and it's a real important to be sad because you're actually feeling sad, God forbid you lost a parent. So like the Rambam, Maimonides writes, if you don't feel any sadness, then you're an achsar, then you're cruel. Because you're a human being, you should feel sad. But remember that the intention of the sadness is only to bring something positive. The center of the sadness is to bring about a yichud, a unification, something positive. So we have to find in that thing that we spoke before to find something positive.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of questions coming in.
Okay, you want to ask one?
The first one is, what prayers are read during this period of time?
Particular prayers? There's no particular prayers during this period of time. There was only the ones that were done in the beginning and the end of the 3 weeks. So the first day, which was yesterday, there were certain passages that were prayed, and then on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th of Av, there's a lot of different liturgy that we read. Most noticeably, we read actually the book of Eicha, the book of Lamentations. Yeah.
The second question is, can Tenuah be filled with the spark of Mashiach according to Hasidic literature, or is that only for tzaddikim?
Can Tenuah or Tshuva?
It says Tenuah.
Can Tenuah be filled
with the spark of Mashiach, or is that only for tzaddikim?
Nothing is only for tzaddikim. Who's a tzaddik? What does a tzaddik mean? A tzaddik means somebody that dedicated their life to become a tzaddik. Okay, it does say Baras tzaddikim, there's a type of creation of tzaddikim. But every person, like there is a Ula Havi Ulai, every person has the potential to be a tzaddik. The Rambam says that every person has the potential to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. I think that's the greatest tzaddik. So something you say is reserved to tzaddikim is a cop-out of a person that says, this is not for me. I can't do it. How do you know? Do you try? We always have to at least aspire, in the language of the Medrash, you always have to ask yourself, when will my actions be like the actions of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Doesn't mean you will become Abraham, but don't start off the premise that I'll never become Abraham. Because if you start off, if you lower the bar there, then who knows where you're going to be. Put the bar on the highest level. Say, my she'ifah in life is to be the highest, biggest tzaddik that ever lived. And then work your way up from there. Don't say, I just don't want to be a Russia. And then you're going to be a terrible person. Start with the biggest tzaddik, and we'll see how you get. And God willing, you'll become that person in the future. Yeah. We'll take one more question from here. Yeah.
Any questions from the room?
Any questions from the room? Yeah, what's the next one?
When Mashiach comes, the only holiday that will remain is Purim. Is that because Purim is the full embodiment of joy?
Actually, Tisha B'Av would also remain. The prophets, it says that Yahafchu Yamim Ha'elu L'Sasan L'Simcha L'Moed T'Avim, that Tisha B'Av will be transformed into a day of joy and happiness, into a holiday. Because ultimately, Tisha B'Av is the deepest darkness, and because it's the deepest darkness, it has the potential for the deepest light. Purim is a separate thing. It's similar to that idea. It also has to do with transformation, which is like turning things upside down. Hanukkah also, according to the Rambam and according to one source, correct. Hanukkah also. But these are two rabbinic holidays. One more question, yeah?
Can we take two more?
Okay, fine, two more.
Two more? Okay. So, trying to find this understanding of the connection of the four worlds
Yeah.
in this life is the only way to live your life in a way that brings understanding and peace. Why is this concept so difficult for this time when in previous generations it was much easier?
It was much easier to understand the concepts or to live the concepts?
The connection of the four worlds.
I think when you hear the concept of four worlds and four perspectives, you start thinking like it's a very complicated system and how could you live your life? I think it's actually quite simple. These are just words, the four worlds, it maps it out. But if you deeply understand yourself, you know that actually you are these four worlds. Deeply within you, these are these four worlds. We know innately that we're physical people, because sometimes something goes wrong physically, we feel it. We know innately that we're not just physical, we're also emotional people. We know innately that we're also mental people and intellectuals. We also know innately that we're spiritual people. And each one is a part of another universe. It's another part of ourself, another part of our soul that's being expressed at that particular moment. Yeah, what's the last question?
The last question is, what meditation would you practice for this period? In the month of Av? Or what is the intention for this period?
The intention is to transform pain and sadness into something that's meaningful and purposeful, and to everything that we talked about. It's to somehow find the light and the purpose. Particular meditations for this time is, some of them we mentioned from the Arizal, which is in the Amida, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The first time you meditate on the Yud Kei Vav Kei with the letters that precede Yud Kei Vav Kei. So Yud is Tes and Hey is Dalet, like we did before, right? The 13 and the 9. And the second blessing you do it in the opposite direction. So Yud becomes Chaf and Hey becomes Vav. And in the third one you do with Atbash. So you change it with the first letter and second letter, the last Aleph Beis. And the Arizal has a few more kavanas for these periods of time. Another example would be in the word Ritzei. If you're familiar with the word Ritzei, Hashem, that Hashem should accept our prayers. The word Ritzei has the same letters for the word Tzara. Tzara means hardship. So when we meditate on certain words that represent Tzara, which is hardship, Tzara, we should meditate that the letter formation of the letters Tzara actually have the same letter formation as the word Ritzei, which is beneficial. So sometimes when we look at something that's Tzara, and if we can see the words Ritzei, that in itself unlocks the potential of something that appears to be a tzara, something that be a hardship, to something that becomes something that's desirable. So that could be some particular meditations.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.